Hey, this is ERIN from CreativeEye Chalk, and as I promised many of you, I am going to go over step by step the watering can. First, I'm going to do the watering can just the way it's designed to be, the outline. I think it's beautiful. I'll show you one of the wreaths I just made with that. Then I'm going to show a multicolor technique for the watering can, and then after that I'll go into the dimensions. So we'll just do step by step. I know a lot of you are new to Chalk Couture. We have a lot of designers from Canada especially, and I will say, although the watering can be a beginner project because it looks beautiful one color, very easy to do, working with the larger transfers take a little bit of work, and I'll show you a couple things I do when I'm working with larger transfers. But really, I would encourage you guys to work with the smaller transfers for a little bit before you attempt the larger ones. You'll just save yourself a lot of aggravation. But when you're ready to jump into the bigger transfers, I'm happy to help you. If you want to message me, happy to give some tips and pointers if I didn't give you enough on this video. Okay, so first thing is, the transfer we're going to work with is this watering can. You can see it's well loved. I've done quite a few signs with it recently, and I just wanted to show you how to do this. So we're going to use it yet again. The transfers are reusable silkscreen transfers. So as you know, there's a silkscreen in there, and then the sticky part we don't have to worry about too much because the paste or the ink will not go through that part. It's only going to go through the silkscreen part. So this is what I do when I'm working with a large transfer. I take my fuzzing cloth and I will set it down. Now I've already cut off the word garden from the watering can itself, okay? It's a two-part, and when you're cutting your transfers, you can either cut right along the line and you have two parts, or you can lift up that part of the transfer and just cut the transfer. It's totally up to you, whichever way is easier for you to do and keep track of. So, but what I do is I take my transfer and I fold part of it back. I'm going to turn the camera down a little bit. Okay, I'll fold part of it back. But I will take that and put it on the fuzzing cloth. Okay, and then I'm going to pull back my fuzzing cloth part way. Now this transfer has been used so much the last 2 weeks that I actually do not have to fuzz it at all. I'm just doing it to show you. But then what I would do is lift that back up and then fuzz the other side. Okay, where I'm fuzzing that. The reason why this is so important to work in sections is because you do not want the adhesive part of the transfer to fold back on itself. Now, if that does happen, you just have to be very patient trying to pull it back apart, and usually I put that under some cool water while I'm working with it, trying to separate it from itself. But the important thing is not to stretch your silk screen when you're doing that. So this one has been used enough that I really am not being as careful as I would be if it were a brand new one. I'm not worried about it sticking on itself. I am working on this beautiful frame. I absolutely love it. Reminds me of a church window. You will have to decide yourself when you're doing any kind of art is, do you want everything to be exact, symmetrical? Do you like things to be a little bit different? I get very, very bored with things being exactly as you would expect them to be. So you will see I'll often do things that are just a little bit different from what you might see somewhere else. And the thing that I love about that is I end up getting a lot of different looks. Sometimes on purpose, sometimes I'm just playing around, and sometimes I really do have a plan. So you know, we normally sell our 3-ounce paste and inks, but we also have larger bottles. You can see the difference in size there, okay, of black, storm, and white. And especially for designers, I would highly recommend you get the bigger bottles. You use those 3 colors all the time. White especially just makes things pop on your page. So don't worry about, will you ever use that much white? Yes, you will. So what I actually have here is I finished a jar of paste, and I don't throw my jars away. I actually finished a jar of ink, not paste. So I have white and a little bit of black mixed in to give me a light gray, and it's added a little more water than I would normally use for my chalk paste, just because of what I do with this watering can. So, and that's something that you will have to decide if you want to do any mixing of paste colors, but it's just a way that I have found work best when I'm working with the dimensional can, because, well, I'll show you that in a little bit. So as you can see, this is more liquidy than cake batter or yogurt, which is what I usually tell people. Mix up your paste until it's yogurt or cake batter consistency, and that's when it's ready to use. This is a little bit runnier. It's more like our inks, but you do have to be careful. You don't want to get too runny, because even though this is adhered well around the silkscreen part, the runnier your chalk paste is, the more of a tendency. Hey, this is ERIN from CreativeEye Chalk, and you see me today in a different gardening outfit. I get dressed in the morning to take one of the students to school, and then I try to come home and do some weeding real quick before it gets too hot, and then start my day chalking, cleaning, whatever I have to do. So that's why I look like such a mess when I'm doing this in the morning. I was trying to get some stuff done real quick, and then I was going to take a shower, but I didn't get it done. So I just look like a hot mess today. But I have a little problem. Yesterday when I was filming, I apparently wasn't filming one of the really important parts. So you see me in this outfit today doing the watering can when it's really supposed to be done yesterday. I'll put it in the right spot in the video, but just don't want you all confused. So we just move on. But okay, so what I have here is, I told you that I have practice boards. This is all chipped up. You know, it's not a board that I would sell to someone or make a custom design for someone. This I just use for practice. And this one I was testing the design. I did a little bit of an ombre, wanted to see the white and peacock color, which I love peacock. You'll probably hear me say that a lot. So anyway, I'm going to wash it off and put the watering can transfer on this, and do the watering can on this, so those of you that are new can see just the simple technique. Now, what I'm doing right now, I just put a wet paper towel on there. I don't always do this, but this design has been on there for several weeks, and it's a big design, so I'm just trying to soften up the paste. Now, people are concerned that the chalk paste is water soluble and that it's going to get destroyed if they don't seal it. Well, the truth is, if it's hanging up in a wall, it's okay the way it is. You don't have to seal it. If you're putting it outside, yes, you want to seal it. So, but you can see how much water I put on there before it actually started reactivating and making it easier to remove the chalk paste. When the design is new, it's a lot easier, but then after 24 hours, I don't worry about it at all. So, you know, if I make a design and I'm traveling with it, I'm just really careful with it that first 24 hours. So, the other time that I will seal it is if I'm doing a vendor show and selling some of my custom pieces, and I just don't want to worry about them traveling. I don't want the person that's buying it to have to worry about any of that. So I will often seal. Usually if someone's buying one of the custom pieces, they are not changing the design a month or two later. They are buying the piece because they like the piece. So, okay, so you can see, I was practicing that flower. I wanted to see what that flower actually looked like when it's chalked, because some of them I really like the transfer, and then I think it's going to look one way, so a lot of times I'll just do it on a little board rather than put it on the piece that I'm working on. So I really recommend that you have test boards so you can test colors, you can test designs, layouts, see if you have enough room for something, that kind of thing. So this is getting a little saturated. So I'm going to wipe off the excess. The other thing I don't worry about in my sample boards is what we call ghosting, and I'll show you that. Hopefully you can see that. I can see a little bit of that saying on there. Don't worry about the harvest, but something the seeds you plant. I know it's but rather the seeds you plant. But anyway, I can still read that. So on my, if I were redoing a piece, I would take my board eraser and work at that to get that ghosting off of there. I have used the magic eraser to clean boards, and I don't think it does as good of a job. Now, our Chalk Couture boards have a special coating on them, and I rarely have any problem with ghosting. On any other kind of chalkboard I've used, I do often have trouble with ghosting, but the board eraser that we sell gets most of it off, and I've never not been able to get enough off where I feel like it affects my design if I'm putting a new design on there. Okay, so yesterday I told you my transfer was at the end of its life, and I used it twice after that, and now I'm using it again. So I have a couple transfers, like one of the wreaths that I use all the time. I actually have two of them that I use, and I just alternate between the two because I use it on some pieces that I get a lot of custom orders for. And I end up just taping the edges down so it doesn't move, but I can still use the transfer. So if this ends up blurry, it's because the transfer is really overused at this point. I should trash it, but I'm gonna test an adhesive that they sell for transfers and see if I think that does a good enough job. So I'm not ready to toss it yet. All right, so what I'm doing now is I'm pressing the silk screen down and making sure that there's no air bubbles. I don't care about the air bubbles on the aqua part. I only care about the air bubbles on the silk screen part. When you feel an air bubble, just lift up and set it back down. Okay? This is the technique that I use when I'm putting paste on a transfer, especially larger transfers. Now this is too thick today to use. I could use it and it would be okay. So I'll just show you that. See, went through the design. It's okay. You could use it. But there's two problems. One, the thicker your paste is, the quicker it's going to dry because it doesn't have as much liquid in it. So that means you have less drying time than you normally would. And we say you have 2 minutes for the paste to dry once you start putting it on the canvas. Now on some larger pieces or 2-color pieces, there's a couple tricks we do, and I will be doing them, but since this is just a 1-color design, what I'm going to do is just go ahead, put it on regular, and in a later video I'll show you a couple of the tricks we do when we're working with multicolor or large transfers. Alright, so the other problem when you're working with it thick is if you do have any spots in your transfer that are not completely clear, it won't seep through. So if you have your paste the right consistency, I find that that's not a problem. Like I can actually see little dots of chalk paste because this transfer is so old. So if my paste is too thick, that would be affected. One thing that I find the easiest is I take the chalk paste and I dab it at the top. The more chalk paste you have on there, of course, the more coverage you'll get the first time. And I do not worry about putting too much because I just squeegee the excess back in the jar. So I could take one of our larger squeegees, since this is a larger transfer, and start pulling it down. But I think I told you yesterday I would not live without my 4-inch squeegee. It just makes things so much quicker and easier to complete your design within the right amount of time. I feel like I get better coverage. And when you're working with chalk paste, you can go both directions. I will be using this transfer, actually a new one, on my curtains this afternoon, and when I do them, I'll be doing a brand new watering can transfer. There's no way I'm going to chance this worn out transfer with ink. Ink is permanent, and I'm just not willing to take that chance. So now I can work at that, get out the lines, put the excess back in the jar. But I'm just going to lift that and show you how beautiful that is. So this is the way the transfer is designed to look. It has the detailed pieces. Chalk Couture already put detail lines on there on the sides. When you're looking at something, the sides are often darker. So they did a good job on this transfer getting detail in there. I do customize a lot of my signs with my Cricut, but I wouldn't make a transfer like this on my Cricut. It's too much detail, weeding all those little things. So I love the detail that I get with my Chalk Couture transfers that I just cannot get with the Cricut, or I'm not willing to get with the Cricut. Let's put it that way. So this is the way this transfer looks if you do it just like that. And honestly, I think it's beautiful. I would not hesitate to teach a class on that, to use it as a base. I mean, I made this sign last week. I was just showing what that looked like in one color, and after I put the words in there, I just really thought it popped and decided to make a board for my door. So that's now my front door hanging. Just go ahead and go over the steps for cleaning the transfer. So I set that in water because I don't want the chalk paste that's on there to dry. I actually want to keep a little bit of water in there. So now that I have that moist, all the chalk paste moist, I'm going to turn it over. And I really do not have very much water in here at all. I'm going to take this dirty water, put it in there just so I have more water to deal with. And since I have this dirty cloth, I'm going to take that, but just because it's there. But really what I clean it with is the board eraser. So right now I'm just loosening up that chalk paste in case any of it dried. Then I'm going to take the board eraser and start going over the design. Because I just want to make sure I don't have any clumps left over on the transfer. Because, like I said, you can reactivate the paste with other chalk paste. So I do have other larger water baths, but I know a lot of you don't. So I want to show you, if you're working with a large transfer like this, you can still get away with a smaller bath just by moving it over, folding it over. Notice that the sticky side is up. Okay? So I got that cleaned up enough. But now I'm going to move my water bath out of the way. Okay, so now that I moved my water bath out of the way, I'm taking my Lysol wipe, Clorox wipe, and what I'm doing, getting the paste off the back, wiping off the back. I do not use my board eraser on the back. I feel like it removes some of the adhesive, and I don't want to remove the adhesive. Now over here I have some caked on paste, and I'll just work at that a little bit and then wipe it again. So what I'm looking for is, like here on the edge I have some chalk paste, and that will raise up the transfer the next time I lay it down. So I want to make sure that I don't have chalk paste sticking in any of the crevices of the silk screen. So I don't think this transfer matters as much, because who would know if there was a line there or not, but it would bother me. This mat right here, I like having this or a vinyl tablecloth that I lay the transfer on when I'm cleaning the back side. I clean the front side in the water bath. I clean the back side on a flat surface. So this is actually a cutting board. It's textured on this side, so of course I don't use that side, but it's just, you know, a flexible cutting board that I'd like to bring. Okay, now that you've seen how to just do the basic steps of working with a large transfer, getting it on the board, some tricks and tips. I'm going to do the design again in a couple different colors. Here you go. Okay, now I probably should have gone ahead and stirred all these up for the sake of time. Have my peacock. That's a little thick. Have my wild berry. Also going to use bumblebee. Okay. So I'm not going to take the time to do this right now, but as you can see, my bumblebee has chalk paste along the sides. I guess I am going to take the time to do it now. So this is the multi-tool. It is wonderful, one of my favorite tools for doing small areas because it's very narrow, but also if you use this side, it's the same shape as the inside of the jar. So when you start running low or your paste starts drying out, it's very easy to get to all those little nooks and crannies, and it's a little firmer than our other squeegees, so it doesn't bend. So when you're trying to get anything that's hard in there, it's, you know, you just put a little pressure and you're able to get all those hard parts out. Now I put distilled water in a spray bottle, and I keep it with me all the time when I'm chalking, because anytime your paste needs a little mixing to get it to the right consistency, you have your water bottle. And always, until you're used to this and have a good idea of how many spritzes to put in, start with just a couple and then add to it, because if you put too many, your transfer will leak. What I'm going to do is just take some dots of color, just random, don't really have a plan. Now a color that I'm not using today is parakeet, and that's just because I didn't grab it. But when I did this design the first time, I put some parakeet color on there and I absolutely loved it. I just thought that was the perfect color for a highlight, and it really made things pop on the design. So it's one of the colors I really recommend to people that they add to their color collection. And I wouldn't be surprised if this yellow does the same thing. So that's why I decided today I was going to do yellow as that special highlight. Okay, so if I just take my squeegee right now and start blending, what's going to happen is a lot of, like, you mix yellow and blue together, you're going to get green. Okay, which that's a technique, you can do that. But when you're doing this kind of thing, what I like to do is first blend some of these individual colors right into the silkscreen transfer. Okay, I'm going to use a different color for each. I can feel that I'm taking too long to do this, so hopefully none of the paste will come up with this. Okay, let me just try to work quickly. If I have to do it again, it's okay. This is just a sample, so it's all good. But all right, so what I'm going to do now is go ahead and start moving that ink. And don't worry about if the color looks brown and yucky. Don't worry about that, because we already blended it in, and it's not going to end up being that color. So let's see. Just want to make sure I got all the little parts there. let me see what I have. I don't even know if I got all the silkscreen, but it looks like I did. Hopefully I didn't wait too long on this. Well, there you go. All right. So there's one spot over here where it's a little bit fuzzy, and that would be that I just didn't press the silkscreen down firm enough over there. So I got a little bit of bleeding. But what I do in that case, I find it easier to wait until it dries, and I take my little toothpick and I will just scrape off the excess. I do want to show you a couple things. Over here, you can see that the colors are separate. The wild berry is separate from the yellow, although it has turned a little bit greenish. Here the yellow stayed yellow. Here you can see the blending of colors. Here you see a little bit of the turquoise, the peacock end blending into green. So depending on how much you press down and work the area will depend on whether or not you get a solid color or a blend. And I actually like both usually when I'm doing this. I'm just going to show you really quickly this spot over here where we got some extra chalk paste on there. This is dry enough now that I just used my finger and got that spot off of there. Now this should be dry enough now that if I wanted, I could straighten up those lines. Okay? So, I just find it very, very easy to do cleanup with a toothpick. Now you may decide you like to clean it up while it's wet, and that's an option as well. Hey, I hope you found the watering can basics and even a little bit of intermediate with the color mixing and blending. I hope you found it useful, and what I'll be doing in the next video is showing you how to do the dimensional watering can. I consider that advanced, and it takes a little practice, but at the same time, I think if you try it, you will be amazed at how good yours turns out even the first time. So hopefully you'll tune in for the next video. I'm in the middle of editing that one, and it's just taken me a while because I forgot to do things like press the record button. So hopefully you'll join me on the next one, and please remember to comment, like, share, all that kind of thing. I love teaching, and I know I'm a little crazy and all over the place, but hopefully you have learned something today. Enjoy talking. Enjoy talk. Let's see, we'll try it one more time. Enjoy chalking. Thank you. Bye-bye.